Evening, everyone. We're your CineNerds.
Are we?
Are we?
I'm JP.
I'm Ryan. And this week we're bringing you my pick. This is Aliens, the sequel to Alien, 1986 film, James Cameron. It's going to be awesome.
Okay.
Ready to dig in?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
So, initial impressions. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
I'm not going to talk about the movie yet. I'm gonna pause you there.
Okay.
If you guys like what we're doing and you've been following us along here, we need your help. We'd like you to spread the word a little bit more. So we usually talk about this at the end of the episode, but sometimes people are checked out by that point. We don't know. So just hoping to get your attention, have you share this lovely little bit of info and help us spread the message.
And, write us a review, and we'd love to read them. We'd love to start reading a lot of reviews as you put them on. And so if you go to our Facebook page, if you go to our Apple podcast page, you can leave a written review, or if you're listening to us on Spotify, or if you just want to leave us a rating.
It all helps. So, but for those of you who have been tolerant of this past, 3/4 of a year so far, listening to us and hearing our ramblings and liking what we're talking about, thank you. It means a lot to us.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I think at this point, with our specials and our regular episodes, we're probably 40-some episodes in, probably pushing close. We're getting close to 50, but we're 40-some episodes in probably by the time this one airs.
I'm loving it, so I'm glad you guys are listening to us and giving us a chance, and I'm here for it. This is fun. This is something that's enjoyable and relaxing. All right, so yeah, Aliens. We'll get into it. What was your initial impression?
Well, I love this movie.
Okay.
I've always loved this movie, and for me, this is the second or third greatest sequel ever made.
It's in my top 3 sequels
yes,
as well.
Yeah,
that's funny you say that.
Yeah, it's definitely in my top 3 sequels of all time.
It's number 3 for me.
Probably 3 for me. Probably this, Empire, and then House 2.
This, Empire, Hellraiser. So yeah.
But yeah, I watched this when it originally came out, and honestly, when I was a kid, the original Alien movie fucking terrified me.
The original did?
The original did. But yeah, I was a pretty young kid at the time. So when this one came out, it was a bit more action oriented.
It was, but I like that there was multiples.
There was multiples. I think the effects were better, because going back now and watching the original Alien, you can tell there's a guy in a rubber suit.
So I saw this one first. I did not see the
Really?
original beforehand.
Yeah.
No. So this one to me kind of set the standard. Mm-hmm. So I saw the first one. I was a little like, I was kind of like underwhelmed because I already saw so much happening. But I appreciated what they're doing still. So
my initial reaction is, I love this film, and I've loved it every time I've watched it. Every era of my life that I've watched it, I have loved it. And I will say, for this review, you watched the theatrical, but I watched the special edition.
False.
Did you?
I went on YouTube and I found the deleted scenes and extra footage from it and watched that.
Okay.
So we can still talk on those pieces
because there is one. Excuse me, because there is one major, not just scene, but really chapter in the special edition that is in the special edition that's not in the theatrical that I do want to talk about.
Well, for me in that as well, there's two that I feel are pivotal to the story as a whole and what helps it all build. And they would have been good left in there. I might have tweaked something with one of those, but we'll talk about that later more. I never thought about it. So initial impression upon this watch. Is that or original watch? What am I going with here?
I mean, I kind of did it overall.
Yeah, I guess. So as a kid, when I saw this, I saw this definitely in the first couple years it came out. But as a kid, when I saw this, I was horrified, but at the same time, zombies already kind of took the helm of what scared me the most, so it didn't bother me as bad. But I was horrified, but I was here for it, and I loved it. It was almost thrilling. It's like that feeling you get in your stomach when you're on a roller coaster and you go over the hill and go down. The way it drops to your feet, that's the same feeling I would feel when I'd watch this movie. It's just great, start to finish. You get the Wayland Corp and a salvage team finding Ellen Ripley from the first one with her cat Josie. Is it Jonesy or Josie?
It's Jonesy.
Jonesy, okay. And yeah, it's just how it builds and goes from there. The momentum is beautiful. So the first time and this time, it's always aged well for me. It's always stayed great. The pacing in the movie is always stellar. Like, there's never gaps that bothered me. I love this film.
Alrighty. Well, let's dive into it. So yeah, the film starts with the
salvage team.
The salvage team.
They're cutting through the door. They see the life support system, cryotube, whatever it is they use, and they instantly kind of feel defeated because they're hoping for a salvage payout, and we don't get a payout now.
Yeah.
So Wayland Corp understands what's happened. They pull her in. Basically, she wakes up, finds out that it's years in the future, and that she's being held liable or accountable for self-destructing the ship that she was on, but prior.
Well, before we even got there, she wakes up and she finds out that she's 54 years in the future.
Well, that's what I said. It's years in the future. I just didn't specify the years.
Yeah, it's 50-some years into the future, and she finds out that her daughter that was still on Earth.
Well, in your version, yes, for whatever reason they cut that out of the theatrical.
Yeah, and that's such a great scene.
Sorry, I did cut you off right there. Want to talk about the daughter a little more before we?
Just a little fun fact, because you find out they show a picture of her daughter as an old woman, and she had passed away. You find out that she does have other family, and she asks if she wants to, find them, and she's no. My daughter's gone. I don't want to go into this. But a little fun fact about this. The photo of the woman that they show is actually Sigourney Weaver's real mother.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. I didn't know that. Yeah, the daughter passing away at 66, like, that put a lot in my head as a parent. I was like, could you imagine, like, waking up tomorrow, you went to sleep tonight, you woke up tomorrow, and all of a sudden your kids are either deceased or older than you. That's a lot to process.
Yeah. But then, yes, we get to the kind of a hearing. They're having
it's a hearing, and there's a deleted piece off this too. Not all of that, where they give her sentencing. I swear I can talk.
Yeah.
When they give that to her, that part was cut off of this too.
Yeah,
theatrical.
They basically take her flight status and she has to go be kind of a grunt. And
she's got to do psych evals every month, and she's got all, like, they're basically trying to label her as crazy, because she's trying to tell them what happened to her crew and how the xenomorph took them all out.
Yeah, because they don't believe anything that she says about the xenomorph, because the planet where they find the xenomorphs at is being colonized, and nobody's ever seen anything.
Well, everyone but Burke. Burke knows what the fuck. He knows what's up. He's a piece of...
Yes. Yeah. But we'll get to there.
Yeah.
We'll get there. Now, this actually gets us to what I was talking about a few minutes ago. And it's not just a scene. It is literally a whole chapter after the hearing that is cut out of the theatrical version. That it was in the special edition.
Which, well, to me, that's the other part. The daughter story, because of how it correlates to Rebecca or Newt, that was vital to me too, and the fact they cut that out pissed me off, but this part especially.
This, after, in the special edition that I watched, after the hearing, in the theatrical version, it literally kind of does a time jump without telling you there's a time jump, with Burke showing up and saying, hey, we've got a problem on the colony. In the special edition, it doesn't get to that part yet. It goes to the colony, and it shows the colony being
operating,
yeah, in an operation. The commander of the.
Well, hold on, just to give that context too. Essentially, this planet that her crew had found the alien ship on, when they sent the colony to set up there, the purpose is terraforming, and that matters because there's a atmosphere production plant that we'll talk about a little bit. But
so it's the colony is very vibrant, it's functioning, nothing's going on, and a radio call comes over to the captain, and is one of their colonists that's out doing exploring find something, and they're radioing in saying, "Hey, do we get credit for this?"
Well, they were tasked to go there.
Yeah,
they weren't just,
but they were calling to say, "Hey, are we going to get credited for this?
Is it our salvage?
Because is it our salvage? Because we found something." And basically, the commander says, "It's really not up to me, but as far as he's concerned, he don't care." So we go to where these colonists are, and you find out that it is Newt, her brother, and her mom and dad, and they have found the alien ship from the original Alien film.
Yes, but I do understand. So the way they kind of band-aided taking this out, which was not an easy thing to do because of how vital I felt it was.
I think it was vital.
And the part that really is huge here is that Newt's father in this cutout scene, Newt's father is the first person who gets a facehugger from the ship to bring to the colony.
Yeah, so he's actually the reason. Newt's father is the reason that the colony gets overran by the Xenomorphs, because he is the first to bring, and they bring him back to the colony.
And when they first find Newt, they find out her real name's Rebecca. And there's a story part that's in the theatrical version where she basically says, "Nobody calls me Rebecca. Everyone calls me Newt except for Timmy," and that's her little brother. And her little brother's on the little whatever moonlander looking
little vehicle
that they're in, and he keeps referring to her as Newt as well in this cut scene. So that was kind of interesting for me because I could tell there was a continuity thing happening there.
Yeah. So and after this big, and this is not, like I said, it's not just a scene. It's like a full on chapter. This is like a 5-minute piece. I mean, it goes from the colony to the alien ship, and it goes through the whole thing. So to me, this was a very vital, and this is one of the most important. This and the daughter scene were two major plot points that were left out of the theatrical version. And talking about this, I actually watched an interview with James Cameron that said the special edition is his personal favorite version of the Aliens film. That he prefers that version to the theatrical.
And rightfully so, if I'm being frank. I mean, the parts and pieces that were removed for the theatrical, it's almost a shame.
Yeah. And the only reason, or he actually said the only reason these scenes were cut was because they told him nobody was go watch a 2-hour and 37-minute film in theater, so they made him cut it back to 2 hours. So they basically made him cut 30-some-odd minutes out of the film. And now I think a lot of the scenes after that is some stuff that's just a little more extended, a little more gore, but a couple of those really vital scenes to storytelling should have been left in.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the films that I already appreciated the character depth, but to get what we would get for the items that were deleted, that would have added a lot more, a lot of layers, and reflected on the first movie to give you a little bit more to why they're there, why this is all happening.
And another thing this missing chapter did for me versus the theatrical version is when we move into the next scene with Burke showing up to tell Ripley, "Hey, there's a problem on the colony." The theatrical version jumps straight from the hearing to Burke going to Ripley's apartment to tell her this. So it didn't feel like there was a time jump, but the only thing you see with the time jump is that she's kind of assimilated into where she's working and she's cut her hair and whatnot. But with the adding that chapter in, it feels a little more natural, like there is a time jump. It feels more like there has been a time jump.
The events continue to build. They go into space, essentially, on the Nostromo. I've been waiting to say that name because I don't know why. I've always loved that name for the ship. But they go to the colony after Burke's recruited Sigourney. By the way, she quickly said no initially. It took a little reflection for her to really think this through. And what I'm curious about, too, is do you know where he told her about her daughter, where that fell? Where did that fall in the
special
movie?
edition?
Yeah.
That fell before the hearing.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I thought that, like, in my mind, because I saw the pieces just by themselves. And so, to me, I thought it was like Burke being shitty, and he told her after she said no initially that he found this info, and that would have swayed her.
Now, he might have said something later about it, but no, in the special edition, he actually comes into the room after she wakes up, and it was basically they're talking, and he shows her, said, I found this for you, and blah 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 blah, so.
I was just curious about that because I didn't know where all the pieces fell. So that just, that aside, basically though, she changes her mind. She decides that she wants to make a difference because she hears that there's families on the colony. What was it? I think there's,
or maybe I'm wrong. Now that you're saying this, now I'm questioning if it was before the hearing or if it was after the hearing. There.
Either way,
it was it was before they got to the colony anyway. So.
I think Burke. I think the number I heard in the movie, if I remember correctly, was 200 families. And when he almost over focused the word families on purpose to her, and she sat with this for a minute, and then she's like, "All right, I'm in." And she calls him late, wakes him up essentially to tell him, and it goes from there. And the Marines come into play.
Space Marines.
So when they wake up at the colony on the Nostromo, did you know that this film was not shot in sequence?
Doesn't surprise me.
Well, Cameron's great at doing that.
Yeah.
I think that he knows what he's doing immensely well in everything he directs. I love how he tells a story, and he does it so it makes sense. But this scene particularly caught my appreciation, we'll say.
I do know that the opening scene here he filmed last.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
So, and the reason he did that was for the camaraderie.
Yeah.
Because they had already filmed the rest of it together, and he would make it all closer.
He wanted to make it feel more natural, like these troops had been to war with each other, so that they had that camaraderie. And so he filmed this scene last.
So I appreciated that. That's all. But yeah, so they wake up, they start kind of talking through what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, and you could see Sigourney Weaver, or Ripley, sorry, you can see her getting agitated with the shenanigans of Hicks. Hudson, I mixed up. So Hudson and Hicks, and Hicks is kind of checking Hudson. He's kind of his big brother, babysitter kind of figure, if you will. But yeah, Bill Paxton as Hudson was very interesting, but she kind of goes, "Are you done?" And she shuts him up real quick, and they starts giving them basically the briefing, saying of how these things killed her crew, how everything was going to go, and they're listening, but they're really not believing her.
No, it's almost, if you ever watched the movie, the Adam Sandler movie Pixels.
Okay.
Did you ever see that movie?
I did, but I'm not.
There's a scene where there's these big buff Marines going to go fight the video game aliens or whatever, and they're gearing them up. Well, they bring the nerds out, and the little goofy nerd gets up there and starts yelling at these Marines, going, "Do you feel me? Do you feel me?" Like he's telling them everything that's happened. He's getting in their faces. That, to me, that scene almost felt like a comedy ripoff of this scene from Aliens, where Ripley is talking to these Marines, and they're just like, "Who are you? We're not listening to you. You're not one of us."
Yeah, that's a good correlation, I guess. That works. But so, essentially, they start suiting up from here, prepping the ships after they do the briefing. And this was an interesting tidbit because it comes back into play later. There are these loader mechs that they use to lift all the heavy gear. There are these awesome mech suits. Each person straps in, controls are right here, and basically it's got fork arms. It's just a cool concept, especially for futuristic type scenarios.
It's essentially a mech suit forklift.
But Ripley goes, I have a second-class grading for operating these, and she wants to help. She doesn't want to just stand around, so she jumps on one of these things, and all the Marines kind of have a little laugh that are there, and it goes from there. But now they fly the ship in, and this is where it all gets fun and it gets nostalgic for me.
Well, one thing that I love about in the drop ship,
the Halo ship,
the drop ship, the commanding officer,
the cigar guy.
What's his name? Lieutenant Gorman.
Oh, I thought you meant Sergeant Abe.
Where he is basically getting sick on this drop ship as it's coming down.
He's only had...
And you got Hicks who's asleep. You got Hudson that's going nuts, having a blast as it's dropping. And then you got Ripley looking at him and going, how many drops have you actually done? And he's like, 30-some. Simulated.
Yeah.
How many in real life? 2, counting this one. So you can tell that this guy that's in charge has no fucking clue what he's doing.
None. And, as a person who manages a team, they lost all their faith in this man at that moment.
Yeah.
They literally were all looking at each other. They already felt a vibe from him they didn't like, and when he said he had no experience, that was gone.
Well, he wouldn't even eat with them.
No,
he wouldn't eat with them. And they even talked about it as they were sitting at their table. Like, look, he's too good to even sit with us, And in that scene, you also find out, and this is, I know we're backtracking a little bit, but you also find out that Ripley does not like Bishop.
Well, before that, there's a cooler thing.
There is a cooler thing right before that.
So this is the scene that, if you've seen Aliens, that Bishop Lance basically does the speed thing with a knife between fingers. Originally, the scene was supposed to just be him doing it with himself, and he don't take that soundbite out of context, anyone. Anyways, it was supposed to be him alone, and he felt the scene needed something more, so they changed it so that they pull Hudson's hand over underneath his, and he's now got both of them going, and he's chopping back and forth. And the whole time Hudson's screaming louder and louder, like, but afterwards he goes and Bishop goes and sits next to Ripley, and he realizes he's nicked himself, and the white android blood comes out of his finger, and Ripley loses her shit. Because
since the first film,
fuck you, Ash.
Yeah, since the first film, Ripley does not trust androids, and so she tells Bishop, "Get the fuck away from me."
So
now, before we go any further, though, I'm gonna step back.
I was going to. I got something else.
You do know in that scene they did not tell Bill Paxton that they were doing that to him.
I knew that it got added in and it was an agreement, but I didn't know if he knew or not.
No, when it got added in, John Carpenter let everybody else in on it.
Who?
John Carpenter. Sorry, James Cameron. Sorry, we just
last film. We
just recorded the thing. James Cameron told everybody but Bill Paxton, because he wanted a natural reaction of Bill Paxton as it was happening. So Bill Paxton did not know that he knew they were doing the knife scene, but he didn't know that they were going to add his hand into it. And so the reaction that you got from Bill Paxton was like a real natural reaction.
The first android from the first Alien, his name was Ash, and he's a Weyland Corp, basically planted seed. And even though she knew those things and told those things at the hearing, it made the whole judgment, if you will, be even worse towards her, because they were just setting her for failure. Weyland Corp essentially needed all this to flow the way that it did so they could get here. But yeah, so we're in the mess hall. We've established that Ripley does not like the android because of that. Tells him basically to stay away from her. He throws his food because he offers his food to her, doesn't?
He offers his cornbread, and she smacks it away, and then one of the other guys from the Space Marines I guess she don't like the cornbread either.
So the thing for me with this scene too is like he looks at her. Oh, by the way, if any of you have seen, and some people love it, some people hate it, I'm here for and good with Alien vs. Predator. And Lance is also in that one, playing the owner of Weyland. He plays Weyland Corp's founder, if you will.
Yeah, Weyland.
But what's his first name? Last name?
I can't remember his first. I bet his last name was Weyland.
But so they based this model. Obviously that was made years later, but they based this model off the founder, and that's where that kind of cycles in for him. But his whole thing is he looks at Ripley and he goes, Ash's model was a flawed model that came out before me. I'm incapable of harm to humans. I cannot hurt a human. It's against my programming. And so she could give two fucks. He said that.
Yeah.
Just nothing. She just wants him gone.
So we've already talked about the drop ship. So we're on the planet, and Space Marines are going in with
one hell of an awesome car. Like this is. What year did Michael Keaton's Batman come out?
89.
89, that's right. And so this was 86 with this car, and there's a lot of similarities for me in this car with the Batmobile. But I love seeing this thing, and I love that the little detail of the height clearance for these facilities, that this car
low.
is made for that, though, but the gun that's on the top, it transitioned to the back.
Yeah, I
thought that was
that.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was one little key thing I always noticed, even growing up, like when that little turret like moves to the back of it, so it will fit through their doors.
Yeah, that was good stuff. But so I'm going to step in right here with this little bit. So in the original script, the intention for the facility and the atmosphere, whatever it was, the terraformer essentially, it was supposed to be completely covered in the alien hive-looking structure, but due to restrictions and cuts in the budget and all that fun, they didn't end up doing that. So I thought it would have been way cooler if we saw these towers made of that. But
I wonder how much faith the studio had in James Cameron though at this point, because I don't think that they had a lot of faith in James Cameron, because I mean prior to this, he was working with Roger Corman. Yeah, he was doing a lot. He did Piranha 2. There was. I think that it was still questionable of how talented this guy was at this point. So,
well, he damn near made a mark in my life with this film. So.
Oh, when this movie and Terminator came out, it put James Cameron on the map.
I just got my youngest, Noah, I got him hooked on Terminator. He loves Terminator. He's in a big way. But anyways, we've gotten to the facility. They're going in. Ripley, Gorman, and Burke stay back in the car while the Marines go out to do their thing. And they start investigating. And as they're walking along the first corridor, we've got acid burns. You've got the sticky residue. They're seeing a pattern here, and Ripley instantly recognizes this too. She's already stressed. You can see it in her eyes. And they keep moving forward, and as they go forward, all of a sudden something starts moving, and they see it, and they almost shoot the poor little girl. It was Newt.
Well, Ripley comes in at this point.
Oh, she comes out of the truck.
Yeah,
that's right.
She comes in at this point, and the Hicks actually knocks his gun away before he shoots her, because you see. I
think I just jumbled scenes.
You jumbled scenes because they see, but the first time they see something was mice.
Yeah.
But at this point, it's Newt, and Hicks keeps the one Space Marine from shooting Newt, and Ripley chases Newt and chases her into a ventilation shaft and brings Newt out, and she won't talk. Newt's kind of in shock and in survival instinct mode, and they're trying to interrogate her, and they're not talking. Then Ripley starts being motherly to her, and she does start to open up and talk.
Yeah, she finds a common ground. She doesn't talk about what she needs to know or how she needs to do it. She starts asking what the doll's head, because Newt carries around a little doll head. What's your doll's name? Doing those things to kind of put her on that level so that she feels safe. And it was well done. She starts talking a little bit. That's when you hear the story about my brother Timmy, my parents. She wouldn't say details. She said they weren't alive anymore, essentially. You could tell she'd been through some things. Because before she starts talking, she's staring off. It's almost like she's still in shock. Like when you see a shock victim after a trauma. That's kind of the look that she was having. And it was quite a difference in look from the what would have been the original scene staying in to the theatrical that I saw. I just saw disheveled Newt, and in the whole scene when she's in that car that was cut out, she's very clean, her hair's brushed, all neat and tidy, and what she's gone through from there to this, I think, mattered and should have stayed in the film.
Yeah, it should have stayed in the film.
But yeah, and we start progressing from there.
Yeah, and basically when Newt does start speaking, she's basically saying, "You're all going to die," essentially,
You're all going to die.
So yeah, from here, they do go to the terraformer reactor. Is that where we're at?
Yes, they drive the car over there because this is when they start getting the signals for the people. They're like, "What are they having a town hall?"
Yes, yeah.
Because they were all in the reactor for some reason. They couldn't figure out why. So they leave this facility now. They go to that facility. When they go in, this is where Ripley, Gorman, and Burke stay within the car, and the Marines go out, and they're with Newt, of course, at this point. The Marines go out, and instantly they start seeing the they're not stereotypical, the typical quintessential honeycomb hive,
HR Geiger,
the Geiger, yeah.
Designs.
You see all that unfolding before them, and they're like, "What is this crap? What's going on?" And while they're exploring, the notion comes to Ripley, like, "Wait a minute, aren't we in a reactor?"
Yeah.
And so she tells Gorman, who sits there and stumbles like an idiot, what's going on. And basically, if they shoot in the reactor, they're going to have a nuclear reaction that's going to explode because of the fusion core.
You know, and one thing that I hated about this scene, talking about this scene, but I like it and I hate it because it shows how horrible of a commander he is. Because had he been a good commander, he would have give his Marines the information they needed. So even after Ripley tells him and points out they're in a nuclear reactor, that if they shoot their guns, basically you can blow all of us up here. So when he does tell the Space Marines, he doesn't tell them they're in a nuclear reactor. He just says, no guns, take everybody's ammo. He doesn't explain why.
And that all of a sudden right there, Vasquez and the other dude, they basically have backups for their guns. They're ready.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Now, you know, I mean, I get they needed their guns in this moment. However, he needed to give them the info.
And for the record, I said her name, so now I'm like thinking about Vasquez. For the record, all the women who never say we have strong female figures and roles, Vasquez and Ripley say it all for me. Hell, even the little girl Newt. Some of the strongest roles, like Ripley, her character is just so iconically ingrained in me as a badass.
Yes.
Like, I love it.
I've got an opinion of Ripley that I will wait till the end.
Oh, okay. I'm
talk
looking forward.
about.
I'm looking forward. But from this scene, though, of course, it's going to happen right after they take all the ammo away. We start having movement.
Yeah, the walls essentially start moving, and you realize that not all of the H.R. Geiger stuff on the walls is just stuff on the walls. It is actually xenomorphs.
These xenomorphs they're like ingrained in the wall, and they just beautifully blend in like chameleons, and they just start slowly moving.
Yeah.
And it's just awesome. I thought this whole sequence to me was amazing. And when they do start shooting, I do want to point out something. All the sound effects that come out of this movie are fucking glorious. I love the radar, the ping that comes off of like ba-doom, 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 and as they're getting closer, it's more creepy. And then the guns, when the guns shoot off, it's like this weird echo down a hall machine gun sound, but it's not quite a standard machine gun. They're supposed to be plasma rifles. Yeah. But just the sound effect that comes off that, all great.
I mean, again, I think this just shows what can happen with a Roger Corman writer and director if you give him money and time, you know, essentially. And I'm a huge Roger Corman fan. But let's face it, Roger Corman's known for being cheap and doing stuff quick and fast and shitty.
As a whole, this movie had 21 wins and awards and 25 nominations. It won 2 Oscars for Best Effects and Sound Effects, back to the point of what I was just saying then, and then Best Effects and Visual Effects. It got nominated for Best Actress in Leading Role, nominated for Best Art Direction, Set Decoration, Best Sound, Best Film Editing, and Best Music and Original Score. And that was just for the Oscars. The other wins came in from other different various outlets. But this movie's fucking stunning.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And this scene alone, you basically lose 3/4 of your Space Marines.
Yeah.
I mean, the bulk of them die in this scene outside of Hudson, Hicks, Val, how do you say her name? Vasquez.
Yeah.
That's it, isn't it?
No, you got Vasquez, Colonel Apone, Vasquez's.
No, Colonel Apone dies in this scene. I'm saying who's left after this scene.
Oh, who's left? Okay, so
Hudson, Hicks, Vasquez. That's it.
I thought there's one other. No.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because once they get back to the other facility, it's just those three, then the lieutenant who stayed in the vehicle,
Bishop and Burke,
and Burke,
yeah, Ripley and Newt. Yeah. Drake
So
is dead. Frost is okay.
Three-quarters of the Space Marines are gone.
Yeah, I just went through the list.
Yeah,
that's insane. So they basically got just decimated, and the worst part about this is you see Gorman's failure in leadership again.
Yeah.
Instead of saying pull out, anything like that, he
just sits there,
freezes.
Yeah.
He straight up freezes. Ripley has to take control herself, and she takes over the helm of the car, starts driving it. Burke freaks out from there, but she gets it still through, and she crashes through a goddamn wall to get into those Marines and get them out of there.
Yeah.
At this point, too, they're delayed before they can start going. The door is closing, and one of the Xenomorphs makes it in, and they shoot the Xenomorph in the head through the door, and the acid sprays all over Hudson's left arm and just gets his arm pretty good, so he's hit pretty hard.
Yeah, so from here, they're getting the hell out of Dodge and calling for the dropship. Let's get the fuck out of here. And
the dropship scene. I do have something to talk about.
I do love the scene before the dropship, though, where Ripley looks at Burke because the lieutenant is knocked out, and she looks at him and says, "We need to call the dropship. We need to fly the fuck out of here and nuke this whole facility, this whole area from space." And he's like, "Well, no,
there's a dollar value."
Yeah, there's a dollar value here. And then she looks at Hicks and says, "Well, you're in command now." And he's like, "Yeah, technically I am." He's like, "So what we're going to do is we're going to call the dropship and we're going to nuke this facility from."
I want to point in a little detail there, though. Hicks doesn't say, "Yeah, I am," like in a like definitive voice. He's like, "Yeah, I guess," kind of the way he says it, and then Ripley and Burke are arguing back and forth because Burke's still trying to validate why not to, and that's when Hicks all of a sudden is like, he's done with this dude's bullshit, and he looks at him and he goes, "You know what? We're gonna go up to space and we're gonna nuke this thing. We're gonna do that." But the dropship. So I have a problem with this. And it's not a major problem. It's the little thing that bothers me.
I have a little problem with this.
The Xenomorph getting to the ship outside when it doesn't seem like the Xenomorphs go outside at all. They're even using the underground tunnels and everything. I mean, it's possible, but it was just weird.
Well, I had a couple issues with this scene too. So it was outside, but part of me, I get where you're going, but they had landed at the other facility, so you could sit here and argue, well, he did go through the tunnel and came up through the facility and then went outside from the facility to get to the dropship. You could argue that. So it doesn't really explain, but I get your argument. The consistency isn't there. Now, the dropship flies off. They find out, well, the co-pilot sees the goo from the Xenomorph, and then you don't see him again.
No.
And then the dropship's almost about to arrive where Ripley and the whole team is, and you see the Xenomorph come around and kill the pilot, and then the dropship starts to crash, and then it does crash, and it kind of literally kind of rolls over the team on the ground. Now, my problem with this scene here, this is where my problem is. I think this is the worst special effect of the entire film.
I could agree with that.
Just the look of the ship coming in, the background scene. I think that scene, if I'm being frank, was just early CGI. It just didn't look right. It didn't look. Yeah, nothing looked right.
And the other thing about this scene, with that said, is bringing early CGI into a film that depends on a real set from almost everything. Mm-hmm. It was a weird throw-in for that. I almost feel like there would have been some advantage points here to pulling some ideas from Lucas, where you use the miniatures and use something like that.
Yeah, because the scene is great. Don't get me wrong, but the look and the feel of the scene is wrong. It just doesn't. It don't fit the aesthetic of 90% of the rest of the film.
And I agree completely. Like, to that point, like, yeah, it doesn't look right, but it still fits where it needs to and delivers the job.
It delivers the message, the job, yeah.
So yeah, moving along. We're down to just a handful left, and Ripley has blown the axle on the vehicle too, right before they call that dropship down, or dropship over, not down. Sorry, we're not there yet. And they're hoping for that pickup, that rescue. It crashes. Now they've got to make it back to the facility. When they get back to the facility, they're with Bishop now, and they're trying to formulate a way to get off planet and be safe. And the reason they start like having these conversations is they look across at the atmosphere place, and something happened while the Marines were firing in there. So there is a leak, and it's doing an exhaust release or something for the cooling purposes because it's overheating.
It's going to explode.
Yeah. So they've got roughly, Bishop says they have 4 hours essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now there's a scene that comes up here that I don't think you're going to do well with.
Yeah, I hate this scene. So at this point, Bishop says, "I've got a plan. We can remote pilot another dropship down, but we got to crawl through this pipe and get to this satellite outside and hack it and fly the ship down." And everybody's like, "Well, who's going to do it?" And Bishop's like, "I'll do it because I'm the only one that can qualify."
Yeah. And who wouldn't freak out in a tube. Yeah. And if I'm being honest too, like, I'm not claustrophobic, but I'm a big dude, so me in a little tube is a scary thought process of getting stuck, that reality. So when I saw him go in there, it even made me queasy. My wife is claustrophobic, and she's like, every time I watch that growing up with my dad, she goes, I could not stomach that part. Just couldn't.
Yeah, I just had to close my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but sometimes, see, I'm that sadistic guy who has to watch it because I know it gives me that rush where it might bother me, but it's worth it.
So Bishop's going through this tunnel or tube, and they are setting up, they have, 4 or 5 turret guns, like automatic turret guns.
Again, this is one of those badass parts that was taken out of the film that wasn't in that. And I love those. Those things are awesome.
Yeah, they, see, I couldn't remember, they didn't have those in the theater. So I couldn't remember if that was in the theater.
It's one of the deleted scenes, because I love those things. Those auto turrets were huge.
This scene, this all setup is great, because basically they're trying to figure out how to close off this section of this facility. So they go out, set the turret guns up in these 2 main areas where they're going to come through, like the main tunnel where they come over, and then the entrance to get into where they're at. They set up these turret guns, and then they weld and block off these areas. So in the main tunnel where the Xenomorphs are coming over, the turret guns just start going off and like mowing. You know, it don't actually show all of them completely. You see some of it through like the cameras on the turrets that they're looking at, but I would have loved to have seen like actual, cinema quality of these Xenomorphs getting blown away. But they're blowing away.
What I saw had them in there. I didn't mean not to that extent, but yeah,
not to that extent. You see a little bit, but not to the extent that I'm kind of talking about that I would like to have seen it at. But it's not a complaint. It doesn't ruin the scene, because they're mowing down hundreds of these things, and they get through that wall. They get to those torrents. Once they run out of ammo, they get to the next ones. Same thing. They're blowing, what's going to be hundreds of them away, and then they get down to like 10 shots left on these torrents, and the Xenomorphs back off.
Yeah, they're backing off. They're retreating. Why are they retreating? And the scene that they show too shows the hole in the ceiling. So we kind of can figure out from there. Now, not knowing that though, and seeing it in the theatrical version, they were just coming in from the ceiling and they didn't know why. But this gave more context, and it was such a short scene. Again, why cut that? That was just silly. Well,
and that scene showed where the bulk of all these Xenomorphs went, because they killed a ton of them, that way.
Minor semantics, whatever, but I will say this: for the amount of ones that were mowed down, and even in the med bay, when we get ahead another scene or two, they're supposed to have acid blood. Nothing was happening.
Yeah. No, I've thought about that too.
But I'll take it. I'm not gonna. That's one of those over
I
critiques.
think that's a critique that we could bring up in every alien film.
You can find faults.
They pick and choose when they want that acid blood to. Mm-hmm. So before we get too much further, we need to talk about the scene with Newt and Ripley asleep in the.
Well, that's what I say. It's coming up in the next scenes.
Yeah,
and it's funny too. I forgot to talk about this because it's one of my favorite lines from the entire movie. When they're stranded outside and the dropship it crash, they're talking, Ripley and Newt. And
oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Newt goes, "We need to go. They mostly come out at night, mostly." And the way she says it, it's just like creepy as fuck.
I love that.
We better get back because it'll be dark soon, and they mostly come at night. Mostly.
I love that quote because South Park made fun of it.
And I know that.
Yes, and there's an episode where Cartman, the whole episode is like
mostly.
He says mostly after everything he talks about. It is so good.
I would love to see.
I'll have to find what episode it is, but yeah, he even says the full line, and it's Cartman going, "Mostly they come out at night. Mostly."
Oh boy! All right. So, anyways, bringing it back to the med bay now. So basically, they know they've got time to kill. They've got the place fortified. Ripley has taken Newt to lay down in the med bay, close the door. They had a camera on her, but then now Ripley's like, you know what? I need an hour or something to sleep so I can be on peak too. So she goes in to lay with Newt. Newt, out of comfort and out of just default, she sleeping under the bed on the floor. So Ripley gets under the bed on the floor with her too. Before she does that, she was given one of those plasma rifles, the awesome sound effects I was talking about. She puts that on top of the bed. So maybe an hour goes by is my guess because we don't have an exact window. And she wakes up and it's kind of abrupt, like she hears something. And when she wakes up, she's like a panic. She opens her eyes and she can see from the floor straight ahead of her 2 of the containers that have face huggers or had face huggers in them open on the floor. She reaches up to the top bunk to try and get the gun. The gun is not there. So she now knows they're locked in there with these face huggers.
And she gets out, she wakes Newt up, and she essentially goes to the camera. She tries to get to the door won't open. She goes to the camera, starts waving. You see Burt cut the camera off. And then the facehuggers start leaping at him. And
we have to back up a second here with Burke, because there's a reason why Burke did this. Ripley went into the computer logs and found out that Burke is the whole reason why this colony got placed on this planet, and he knew of what had happened with her and her crew, placed them there intentionally to basically as an experiment. He was playing with their lives, knowing that he was sending them there to die. In hopes to get a weaponized version of these Xenomorphs, the facehuggers, a whole bit. And also something we didn't talk about was in the med bay, they had probably these 2 canisters that had the facehuggers in them. They already had been experimenting on them.
Yes,
they already had 6 to 8 of them that we could see in tubes. So quite the whole process of what was going on here. So facehuggers are in the med bay with them. They're both freaking out. They're scared. They're scared completely. They're trying to bang on the windows. The windows don't allow any sound to come through. She's trying to get the attention of them on the camera. Burke's turned it off, as you said. So they're really kind of in a screwed scenario. Ripley, quick thinking,
pulls the fire alarm.
Oh no, she puts the lighter up
by
the sprinkler system.
Fire alarm. Same fire alarm off. Yeah.
And Hicks to the rescue. Essentially, Hicks and everyone really, but Hicks is definitely first to go.
Yeah, Hicks. She's about to get face hugged, and Hicks gets the one off of her, and Hudson shoots the one that's on the girl, on Newt. So yeah, Space Marines to the rescue.
I love Newt in her defense. She's a little badass, man. Such impressive tactics. She pushes, I don't know if it's a filing cabinet or whatever's on the ground. She pushes it against the wall and pins the facehugger's tail in between the wall and the thing, and it can't get any further. So she's just trying to hold that in place so it can't get her. And I like that you get to see the intimate facehugger portion of the sucker on these. It almost reminds me of Minox from inside of the... I'm having a brain fart, whatever that's called. The creature.
Yeah, and Empire Strikes Back. Yep.
But, yeah, so we get past the scene. They're both fine, but Ripley knows damn well what Burke did, and she is going at him. Basically, from here we jump into that's when the radar starts going off.
Radar goes off. You got Xenomorphs dropping from the ceiling. Big gunfight.
This is the scene where those turrets would have been just prior as well. And as the Xenomorphs start moving in, they can't figure out. Now, that scene that was taken out, you could see that they had gone up into the ceiling, but the Marines and Ripley and them did not know that. So it still would have played well into the scene where essentially they're seeing the motion sensors go off and they're creeping in. It's getting closer and closer, and they're on top of them. So Ripley finally is like, oh, shit, and she looks up. And from there, they try and escape to the back of the room. Burke
locks them in.
He locks them in that room, and he tries to escape through the other room. And thank God the next part, because I fucking hate Burke.
Yeah. And there's also a deleted scene with this, too.
What was the deleted scene here?
There is and this, I don't think this didn't make it into the special edition, but there is a deleted scene where you think, because it doesn't actually show the Xenomorph kill Burke, that the Xenomorph actually takes him back to the nest.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, and he gets face hugged.
Oh, that would have been great.
Yeah, so
I will give respect to Paul Reiser here, because this is one of those. Usually, when you hate a villain, you tie that to the actor, and you see him in other roles. You're like, oh, that guy. Oh, like, and Paul Reiser, he's a good actor. And in this one, yes, I genuinely hated the character, but I love him as an actor. He's good. So,
well, and Paul Reiser, every time I see him, and this is crazy because I love this film, and I always forget that Paul Reiser's in it. And then as soon as the movie starts, I see Paul Reiser, and I'm like, oh yeah, I hate him in this movie, but he's so good in it because I'm so used to when I think of Paul Reiser, I think comedies.
I'm mad about you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's finally fucking done. Thank God. Peace out. So now I forgot. Did they go into that same space?
They got into the first door, but they didn't get into the second door.
Okay, because I was going to say there's the one in there, obviously.
They go into the vents.
That's right.
And the Xenomorphs chase them into the vents. And then this is Newt is showing them how to get to the landing platform where Bishop is. And this is where
Gorman and Vasquez,
she's shooting. She's in the back. She's killing Xenomorph. She runs out of ammo. Xenomorph catches up to her, and Gorman comes back to help her. He's trying to fight him off and trying to get her out, but she's too injured. They're cornered, and he essentially pulls a grenade out, or bomb out,
And to me, this was kind of a salvation for Gorman.
Yeah,
because Gorman knew where he fell short. He also knew that he was probably going to die, and he didn't want to leave her behind. He went back and he stayed with her. And Vasquez, even before he hits the trigger, goes, "What was you're always an asshole."
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
But it's a good moment for sure for the camaraderie of that team in that moment.
Yeah.
Death, but still good.
Yeah, it was definitely a saving moment for the lieutenant.
Now the next scene, it's Hicks, Hudson, Newt, and Ripley, yeah, and they're crawling. They go over to the ladder where the wheel is, right, and the explosion happens that kills Vasquez and Gorman, and when it does, it shakes them loose when they're climbing up. This ladder.
Didn't Hudson die in the med facility?
I don't remember.
Yeah,
no, yeah, Hudson went down.
Yeah, Hudson went down.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, it's just Hicks, Newt, and Ripley.
But still, same thing happens. Now, this is the cool thing: the actress who plays Newt literally kept messing up this scene on purpose so she could slide down the 3-story slide that she loved so much, to the point where Cameron had to say, if you just knock out this scene and get it done, you can play on this as much as you want. And she nailed the next scene, and they moved forward, and she definitely played with it because she had fun with this slide. So I thought that was kind of cool.
I didn't know that. That's actually pretty funny. So yeah, and at this point, they run down to where she's at, and they're trying to get her out from under this floor. She's in the water. Newt's in the water, and then all of a sudden the little bing goes off on their little tracker, and you got Xenomorphs swarming in.
They're swarming in, but god damn that scene with the alien behind her.
Yeah,
it's
kind of an intense scene.
Yeah.
And, so Hicks grabs Ripley. They take off, and he's yelling that she's gone. Newt's gone. She's done. And you get back up to the landing where the dropship has now arrived with Bishop.
Is it there yet?
It's there because they get into the dropship, and Ripley tells Bishop that we're not leaving yet. Newt's still alive. She gave the wristband tracker to Newt earlier in the movie, and so she's loading up, getting guns and a flamethrower and extra bombs and ammo, and they fly to the reactor.
Atmosphere reactor,
the reactor, because that's where the nest is. She knows that's where Newt is.
The one of the things, since we lost Hudson by this point, I wanted to mention too, because I didn't talk about it earlier. Bill Paxton on set, every single time he swore, he apologized to Newt because he felt so bad about it, because he's just doing it for script. He's like, I'm so sorry. So I thought that was cool too. But anyways, so yeah, she goes into essentially the nest, and it seems like for it being the nest, she has a pretty easy go of entering. I don't know if because of all the things that are going off, the other explosions, all the chaos that's happening, if the other aliens are distracted, how they are, because they're a hive entity, if you will. They act like a hive, at least like bees or ants.
I do want to talk about, just mention this is one of my second issues with this film. Talked about the first one with the special effects with the dropship blew up. So in this scene, before she gets down into the nest, she's on the dropship, and it's showing her load up ammo, put those guns, tape those guns together in the flamethrower, and getting all this stuff. But then when she gets to the elevator, going down to and it may be different in the theatrical, but in the special edition, I don't know. I can't remember if there's a difference. So at least in the version I watched, when she gets to the elevator, it turns into another little quick montage of her taking her shirt off and throwing guns on, or throwing ammo around her and putting the shoulder straps on her. And so you got two kind of montage scenes of her getting ready to go in for battle. And that second one, I was like, why didn't they just do this on the drop ship before she got to the elevator? It didn't make sense.
You don't want dudes around her when she's pulling the boobs out.
Well, it just didn't make sense to me, I guess.
I mean, for Hollywood purposes, though, like, that was the 80s, and, they wanted those kind of, even though you had a badass in Ripley and she was dressed head to toe, I think they wanted to accentuate certain aspects. So, hence, when she woke up in the beginning of the film out of the the sleep thing, and, you see all the... I digress. Anyways, so yeah, this sequence was a little flustering there. I could see where that does, but to me, it was more so about the ease of which she had access to get to the Queen. I didn't think there was too much going on there. I thought it was almost too easy to get to that. You would think that you'd have to have an all-out battle to get there.
No, she. But I guess in the version I watch, that most of those Xenomorphs are dead, so that's why those walls aren't infested anymore from the turret guns. But. Yeah. So I guess that's another reason why that should have been an important scene to leave in, because it does show of why it is a little easier for her to get into the Queen at this point.
Well, the rate at which the Queen's laying the eggs, though, like between that, I know there's lack of bodies at this point, but I do feel like there probably, if you got 200 families, there's probably a few more Xenomorphs.
Yeah, and you see a few more for sure. But she does. She gets in easy, and she's dropping little flares to mark her way back out, because she's looking for Newt, and she does end up finding Newt's tracker before she finds Newt. But then she thinks Newt's gone. At this point, she finds the tracker. She don't know what else to do. Then Newt wakes up, and you see
and she screams down the
She starts screaming because she sees one of the eggs opening up, and at that point, Ripley comes running and saves the day for Newt. And this is also the scene that was the deleted scene where you would see Paul Reiser cocooned and half dead, and his chest is about to pop open.
Okay. You know what? I think I want to say maybe I have seen this, because you're saying that, and it's kind of like popping in my head that I have seen something like that.
Yeah.
So that would make sense. I think so. But regardless, I think this is a great... So to me, like, that relationship between the mother and Newt, and then the relationship that that Sigourney Weaver has with her daughter who passed away in the movie, I think that those two finding each other echoes a lot for this and is symbolic to this next scene. So she comes essentially... I don't know, maybe like a few yards down the hall that she finds Newt is the Queen's chambers.
Is the Queen, yeah.
And I love the pan because they go from the egg. You see the tube where the eggs are being laid, and it pops out, and it kind of rises back up, and it's a slow pan over to the Queen, and then you see her extend her exoskeleton down, and it's just beautifully done. It's a great scene.
Yeah. Well, and this is the whole mother-child scene where the Queen's looking at her and Newt, and she seems to know that that's a child and a mother figure, and she blows the flamethrower towards her eggs. And
the Queen seems to know a lot. That's the thing. Like, so the Queen, there's so much here to unpack because you have the mother-daughter relationship, you have the Queen and her eggs relationship. She clearly recognizes the threat to her children when Sigourney Weaver points the flamethrower at the eggs. You've got a lot happening here. You've got one of the coolest things to me too is how they communicate. There's no sounds. There's no nothing. It's all telepathic. So basically you see the Xenomorphs because there's a threat to the nest coming in all the different crevices and holes. And then all of a sudden when Sigourney Weaver points the gun at one of the eggs, the Queen just looks in the direction of the Xenomorphs and they all start backing up and pulling out. So very cool stuff.
So so Ripley and Newt start to get out of there, and one of the eggs start to open. Did that happen in the theatrical?
Well, but she basically lit it on fire though.
Yeah, well that's the moment when the egg starts to open. She starts flamethrowing and shooting and shooting grenades and.
But there was I feel like there was a pause. She was trying to get as far back as she could, and then she just fucks it all up.
Yeah.
Like, she empties everything out of it. This gun's got grenades, it's got rounds, it's got flamethrower ammunition. She empties everything.
Yeah. Into the Queen's egg-laying sack.
And there's a detail for the egg-laying sack where when the Queen recognizes the place is burning down, her children are in danger, she separates from that tube, and she actually show it in it. I thought that was great, too. That was a good little detail. But, as they're backing out, there's an elevator, and the elevator, she's waiting for the elevator to come up, and it's going super slow, and she's like, come on, come on. The Queen's getting closer, and she gets on the elevator magically and starts going up to where she needs to go. While she's waiting, she gets up to this platform. You see everything blowing up around. You're waiting for Bishop, and she goes, God damn it, Bishop, because he's not there yet. And she's freaking out. She's like, she's basically losing her mind about it. And so all of a sudden, though, the fucking door of the elevator opens. This Queen alien knew how to operate a freight elevator.
Yep.
That was kind of like, okay, how intelligent is the species? Because they seem animalistic and like insects almost too, but this Queen takes everything into a different realm, different perspective.
They definitely, there's something else there. And she's obviously understands more than people think.
When they start doing the later movies, did they outline a genetic memory? Was that something that was brought up? Because I think the aliens all have genetic memory.
I feel like they did, and I feel like they did in...
Definitely in Resurrection.
I was going to say, I feel like it's Resurrection because I feel like it was because the hybrid Sigourney Weaver Ripley character.
Dude, the hybrid character, that's a whole other movie I could talk about. That's not a bad. None of the alien movies really are that bad to me. They've got their issues, but yeah. So we've got the scene. The Queen essentially is opening the elevator. Bishop's now appeared. He's lowering the back end of the what are those technically called? What are is it a Warhawk or something?
The drop ship. I'm just calling it a drop ship.
So he lowers the back down. Ripley and her jump up, get on the ship, and it starts taking off. And you see the legs going up as it starts going up or upwards. They think the Queen is still on the platform.
Mm-hmm. The reactor explodes. They're in space.
Think they're free and clear. They land in the bay of the ship, the Nostromo, and
Bishop gets stabbed through the
Well,
heart.
before that, Bishop and Ripley are having this fucking magical moment where she's like, I don't care that you're an android. You just were a badass and we're safe because of you. And he's like so happy to hear it. And that was weird too. So I do have a couple things to point out with the android. When he's crawling in the tube, the rough scene, are these androids able to breathe? Like, he's got all these when he's crawling through the tube, and then when he gets stabbed by the queen's tail, the deep sigh comes in, and I'm like, wow, that's kind of, if that's like a biological android, I guess that makes sense. That's interesting. But if not, then they're just doing it out
Maybe
of
it helps
programming.
They have a breathing thing that pumps the fluid.
Maybe.
It would make sense.
I don't know, but Queen messed him up. Like, that tail's something, man.
So, yeah, and the Queen rips him in half, picks him up and rips him in half, and Ripley tells Newt to run and hide, and Ripley distracts the Queen, and she takes off and gets behind the garage door and closes it. And at this point, the alien is going through the floor chasing Newt.
Yeah, she's pulling up all the floor, like the steel covering plates, the grates. Newt's hidden in there out of instinct because that's just her default, it seems. Ductwork grates, wherever she can crawl into. And she's just ripping these things off left and right trying to get to Newt. And she's almost about there, and all of a sudden the door starts coming up and it distracts the Queen. Mm-hmm. And what is Ripley in?
We get mech, forklift, Ripley.
The loader mech. That's awesome. It's just such a great thing.
And the classic line of, get away from her, you bitch.
Yeah, that's so good. There's one other line, too, I forgot to talk about. It's the most amazing one from Hudson. Game over, man. Game over. That's so good. Anyways, this little sequence, this battle that happens between the Queen and loader mech Ripley, it's pretty cool. It's pretty amazing. It's, their mech is slow.
Yeah, it's a slow fight, but it's a cool fight.
I would have thought the alien would be more agile, but it made sense for what it needed to do, and I appreciated it. I did like that she was using the fork hand to kind of choke and hold the Queen. But to me, one of the other questions I was wondering is why. I mean, maybe she's afraid of puncturing the ship's hull. I don't know, but I would have just closed and crushed the alien's head. Yeah. But then the acid.
Yeah. But she does drop her into a airlock. Unfortunately, she's in the airlock as well.
Yeah, she falls right down there, like with her. The Queen reaches up basically and grabs her and pulls her with her.
So she's crawling out. The Queen's trying to get out from underneath the mech that's laying on her, and she opens the airlock, and everything is blowing out, and the alien's hanging on. Newt's about to be sucked out, and Bishop reaches out and saves Newt.
Yep.
And
do you know about that scene?
Mm-mm.
So that scene was a little bit of a blooper or an oopsie, because Lance Henriksen was in half. His upper torso was basically through the floor, so the rest of his body could pop up and he could fit into the prosthetic. But half of his torso popped out in the one scene when he's grabbing her, so you can see it on film. And Cameron always laughs about it because it was. I don't think
I've ever noticed it.
I didn't know it until yesterday. I saw it and I was like, oh, I never caught that before. It's kind of cool. Little fun tidbits. So as after this Queen gets sucked out into space, I really didn't like how everything manifested from here, especially how it translates into the next Alien movie. I have characters who I deeply am invested in now with aliens. Hicks, Newt, Bishop. They're all put into pods, and because Bishop's still able to be salvaged, since he's an android, he's got memory, data banks, the whole bit. They're all put into pods, and she's hoping for somebody to save them or whatever, like what happened before with her. And the next movie, as we go into it, I won't talk much further than that. Only Bishop's alive.
Only Bishop.
Newt goes down, Hicks goes down, and the only reason they brought Bishop back online was because they had to plug in to ask him some questions about infection stuff. Another movie, another time. But, yeah, I didn't like how that happened. I wish that would have carried on.
Yeah, and I'm sure that was... People were busy filming other stuff, contracts, trying to get...
I know how they can fix this. We can have what's his name? Sean Bean? No, what's the guy's name? Michael Bean.
Michael Bean.
Michael Bean they could make an android off of him They make his age appropriate so that Ripley feels comfortable with it. Little stolen Terminator bit.
Well, and this weekend, which I don't get to go watch it because I'm performing, Romulus.
I'm going to it.
So I have to wait. And it'll already be out by the time this episode airs. But yeah, Alien Romulus. We got Alien Romulus.
That was one of the reasons I picked this. It was between this and They Live, not going to lie. So I was like, So happy we picked it, though. The previous episode of The Thing and this, both amazing films. All right, what was your rating?
What, do you want to talk about budget real quick?
Oh, we can do that, too.
Do you know what the budget is?
I don't.
This movie, actually, from what I found, the budget was pretty small for what it is. Budget was $18.5 million.
Get the fuck out of here.
That's what comes up. And
that seems really low.
Yeah, that's what I found. Now,
$18.5 million estimated, it says.
Yeah.
Opening weekend, $10 million. Gross U.S. Canada, $85 million. Gross worldwide, $131 million.
And that's the thing. I've actually found multiple different. Every number I found for box office for this film has been different. So I settled at this one that says 85 domestic, 98 international, and 183 million. But I think this actually is counting some of the re-releases.
Okay.
Because I had found other ones that put it around the numbers you just read off. I think I found one that was actually closer to like 130 million.
I tend to find IMDb to be pretty dependable, so that was where I just got my
Usually
numbers.
I look at Box Office Mojo.
Okay.
This time I looked at the numbers. It's actually a website, box office website called The Numbers, and theirs are usually pretty good, and they actually give the breakdown, which Box Office Mojo gives the breakdown too. But yeah, I found like 3 or 4 different numbers for this film. But regardless, whichever number you pick, this movie made money.
Yeah, a lot. When you come back with 5 to 6 times the amount of your budget, you've done well. All right.
Ratings.
What do you got?
All right, so this is definitely my favorite Alien movie. I'll definitely say that for sure. And James Cameron really knocked this out of the park. I'm not a big Cameron fan, just to be completely honest. I like Terminator. I like this. And he's got a few things here and there that I'll admit it's okay, but I'm not a big James Cameron fan. But the cast in this film with Michael Biehn, you got Bill Paxton, Sigourney Weaver, Paul Reiser, Lance Henriksen alone. I love Lance Henriksen. The cast in this was just great, except for a couple of the special effects shots.
Lance banked the rest of his career on this film.
Really?
He said that because he had done so many smaller roles prior to this, he said that if this film didn't do well for him, that he was going to be done. He was going to retire. And because it knocked it out of the park for him, he kept going. So I'm glad.
Yeah, because he's done some great films since then. I lost my train of thought. Where was that?
Sorry. Cast. Great cast.
Great cast. And I was moving past that, and
I'm sorry.
I lost
I
completely lost my space. Thanks, Ryan.
Jesus, the rambling idiot Ryan.
Except for the couple scenes that I kind of complained about. Also, before I give my rating, the little tidbit I said that I wanted to talk about the character Ripley. A lot of people have basically said Ripley is like this fantastic final girl. I have read this multiple times.
Final girl?
Yes, I have read this multiple times.
What does that
mean? And final girl like in horror films.
Okay. Like the Survivor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like she's like the ultimate final girl.
Okay.
This is my argument. I never saw Ripley as a final girl. I saw Ripley no different than I saw Rambo or major action figures of that time. She was an action star. She wasn't a final girl. I would compare her to more of a Stallone or a Schwarzenegger, with what Sigourney Weaver did with the Ripley character. That's how I always felt. I just never saw her as a final girl from a horror film. I saw her as an action star, an iconic female action star, that was just absolutely amazing.
She was never like she's not like a final girl to me is somebody who is almost always getting killed every 2 seconds, but screaming about it, not doing anything about it until they have to.
Yeah,
she was never ever not. She was never in that position. She was always.
No, she was always take control,
mm-hmm.
and that's one thing I love about this whole series is it feels like the writing is good, and we talk about this with some films in the past with the girl saying we have to like this action star or this movie because it stars a female in the lead of this action role, but they don't tell the story of it. This film shows that you can have an amazing female action hero, and it works. Okay, I've rambled. My actual score for this, because this is my favorite Alien movie, I am going to give this a 4.7.
Oh, wow. That's still up there. That's. I wasn't expecting that, honestly. I'm probably right there with you with what I'm about to say, but I've always been fascinated with the idea of alien life to the fullest. And so as a kid with imagination coming up through adulthood, this is one of those classic timeless movies. This movie ages unbelievably well. It never gets tedious. I'm never mad I'm watching it. If I'm watching it, I'm always drawn in to the characters, always drawn into the story, the comedic relief, the horror aspects, the Geiger influence, the whole bit. This is a great science fiction series, yet alone movie through and through. So for me, I'm about a 4.8. I'm not a perfect 5, but I'm definitely, I love this movie with everything in me. It's a great, solid film. So
yeah, we're sitting in the same spot. And actually, I started to go a 4.8,
well,
and I think for me, some of the special effects just were not great, and that shouldn't really affect a rating in this film. But I don't know. But I think we're both dead on where we're at. So
all right. So we're at that time. 3cinenerds@gmail.com is the email. If you guys have any suggestions, any comments, anything you guys would like to say, we'd love to hear from you. For your listening pleasures, you can find anything that you use for audio, for podcasts and the like. I can't talk, I swear. Anyways, it's all on our link tree and our bio on our Facebook, so please check it out. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, help us out and spread the word. We appreciate it greatly.
We've already said everything I normally say at the beginning of the episode, but like, share, rinse, repeat, review. Have a good day.
Peace out.